Sure. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
You were born ready, but that's your love. That's your that should be your license plate.
Yes, exactly. Are you wearing a little crown, Lindsay Murray, or is that a crown on the wall behind you?
Behind me, I have a crown. The problem is like it's too tall. It doesn't fit into the shot, so I had to abandon it.
Well, I love your headdress. Where does the headdress come from? Oh, it's posted on the wall behind you. God bless you,
Mhm.
sweetheart. God bless you.
Fireworks.
God bless you. And Robert, what do you do, young sir?
I am a radio talk show host in Indianapolis on
And
93.1 WIBC.
we're going to get to that in a second. And I want to welcome everybody to the world according to the fabulous Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We are joined tonight with special guest Rob Kendall. He's a conservative talk show host in the great state of Indianapolis.
The state is called Indiana.
Indianapolis, the state. I know. I just realized that as I said that. But why don't you tell us? It's great. I could edit that. But why don't you tell us what station you're from over there, Rob?
Well, first of all, let me say I had so many people ask me to tell Ben what big fans they are of Ben.
You're very kind, sir. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you.
I'm speaking for the world.
Well,
the whole world of Central Indiana saying what a big fan.
God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir. Thank you very much.
I co-host the Mock and Rob show, which is 9 until noon weekdays on 93.1 WIBC in Indianapolis.
Wow, that's a very hard gig. 3 hours is a lot. That's a really
And it's where Mike Pence, I found out, used to broadcast from. So
really,
yes,
good.
And he actually got to interview the president, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, yeah.
He's been telling people about it for 4 years.
Great.
And of course.
Well, I want to know more about Robert. How old are you?
I'm 37. Today's my birthday.
Happy birthday. That's
Thank
very
you.
good. Very good. We'll sing happy birthday later, but it's great. Where did you go to school, sir?
I went to, my degree is from IU. It's right there on the wall. IUPUI is the school, but it's an Indiana degree.
Well, if I may say this, I have been writing for a very long time, longer than anyone else on the screen has been alive, probably as long as all of you together have been alive, for the American Spectator, which got its start at IU. And we are all very, very much big fans of IU. And God bless you, sir. God bless you, sir.
Thank you.
And now I'm scared again because IU is Indiana, right? So that would be the home of one of the greatest basketball teams of all time. And Bobby Knight.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Go Hoosiers, I'm not mistaken. And of course, let's welcome from Times Square, fabulous presenter.
You are on
Lindsay
Times
Marie.
Square? Or
Right now.
No, you have that clever thing where you can change your background, right?
Yes.
Right. Very good. How do I get one?
It would be, we'll teach you how to set that up. But I think your background is fairly cool enough, Big Hoss. And I want to welcome everybody out there listening on our YouTube feed, live stream, The World According to Ben Stein, also on Facebook. Like us, love us. I want to, of course, this is a Ben Stein year special. I want to wish everybody a happy new year. I think part of the impetus for this show was that I brought up at the end of the last show that this has been a rough year for a lot of people, Rob, Lindsay, Ben. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of people are lonely, and you know, you don't have to be alone. And a lot of people are struggling with addictions and all of those other things. I know these are what people struggle with at this time of the year. And so I think Ben, more than anything, for me, wanted me not to be alone. I know that. And,
I know, and I'm hoping that although moments ago you said you were not coming, I am hoping that you will change your mind and get in that fabulous car and go. You can listen to the radio the whole time, and it's more or less the same as any other great experience. And you can stop at our favorite gas station, get an ice cream sandwich. You're all set.
So thank you very much, sir. And I want to welcome everybody, of course, but Rob, your thoughts on that, because this has been, you know, everybody at crazy trying times. I don't even want to talk about it, but I don't think people talk enough about what it's doing to people up here. I don't think that is people like to gloss over, this sheer terror that we've been living in for the better part of 9 months. I mean, 9 months at this point.
9 times.
Yeah,
the only person who talked about it in a very caring way was Donald Trump. Mr. Kendall, sir.
We've talked a lot about this on the air. That I think you could make a compelling case. My dad tells me up and down that the Great Depression far eclipses this. But you can make
far eclipses this. It's not even close.
But you could make a compelling case that 2020 is one of the 5, maybe 6 most horrific years in American history. Now, I bet 1863 is probably up there. I mean,
this is not like the Bolshevist show where everybody has to agree with everybody else. So we can disagree. If I may say so, I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as any year during the Great Depression. It's certainly not as bad as any year during the Civil War. Certainly not as bad as the first several years. In fact, all the years of World War II.
But we could acknowledge it's in the top 20.
It's been an effing terrible time, and I think largely brought on by the incredible overweening, controlling, authoritarian nastiness of the authorities, especially in our state that Judah and I happen to live in, sunny Cal. The craziness of our governor can hardly be overestimated.
What say you, Rob?
I think he's absolutely right. We've seen it even in our state. And that's the amazing thing, right? Is even an ultra left state like where Ben is at, but even in Indiana, which is supposed to be a Republican state with a Republican governor, Republican legislature, Republican 2 U.S. Senators that are Republican, there's been, 1 million plus people put out of work. Thousands of businesses have been shut down. It doesn't seem to be a partisan thing. It seems to be an elitist, them versus us sort of thing. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing, which is amazing.
I think that's exactly right. Before I chime in, I would love to hear from Lindsay Marie on this same issue.
I agree. I definitely think it's an us versus them. It's the political elites versus everybody else. And we see this time and time again. They want to enforce lockdowns and they want to place restrictions on us, but yet they're exempt from them. And Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Indiana state legislature exempted themselves from the mask mandate that they gave the rest of the state. Wow. And it's rules for thee, but not for them. I mean, it's crazy. And I think people are finally starting to wake up to the fact that we are treated differently than the ruling class.
Yeah. And I think this is so amazingly true in California, where we've seen some of our top officials just thumb their nose at the rules and just take a big dump, if I may use a crude phrase, on the rules that apply to the ordinary citizen. And Robert, I think Robert was getting at exactly this point. While this is nowhere near as bad, not even in the same universe as the Civil War or the Great Depression, people are scared of their own government in a way that I don't think we have ever seen before, except in the southern United States during the Civil War. People are scared of their own government. The wild behavior of the Democrats in all their persecution of a man who was truly a great president, Donald Trump, it has no parallel, and I think tells us that we really must be afraid of our government. Now, it's not just that they don't come to help us, they're scaring us.
But, I want to bring up another point about getting back to this thing, what they're scaring us with. We used to have faith in institutions. Okay, we used to have faith in Ben in the 60s, right? I mean, we had faith in NASA getting to the moon. We don't have faith as Americans right now in the CDC, in Dr. Fauci, the worst.
Go on for hours.
Right, but we don't have faith in what they're telling us is remotely that they know what they're talking about. We don't have Einstein in there. We don't have right now it's like we don't have faith. We've lost faith, and that's a very
sure, dear friend. I don't think it's an issue of their intelligence, although I do very much question the intelligence of some of these people. I think we have ethical questions about them. I mean, the Democrats who went after various Republicans on Capitol Hill, they weren't just doing it because they're stupid, although some of them are, but they are bitter, vengeful people. And the vehemence and cruelty with which they went after a great man who's now in the Supreme Court is just astounding. The vehemence and cruelty with which they went after Donald Trump, who God knows makes himself a target, is astounding. I mean, the cruelty, I would even say sadism of the people on the other side who go after perfectly honest, hardworking civil servants and public servants. Uh, there's no parallel that except during the Civil War when there was real violence. There was actual violence within the chambers of the U.S. Congress. But that's not. But I don't think since then, which is quite a long time ago, we've seen anything like this level of anger within the government towards other members of the government. It's real. There's something sick about the level of anger at this point.
Rob?
No, I think he's right, and I think one of the big problems, and Ben can speak to this very eloquently. There was always in America an idea of hope, and we talked a lot about this the past couple of weeks. That look, American politicians, especially from the presidency or the highest offices in the land, were built around hope. He may not have agreed with their policies, but even, we think about Reagan, the shining city on the hill, Roosevelt, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. You had Bush in the rubble of 9/11 standing up saying, they will all hear from us soon. Even Obama, while I disagreed with almost all of his policies, it was hope and change. The idea America's, we're going to be better. These words that are coming from Biden about the dark winter, this is not America, right? I mean, on so many levels, the past 9 going on 10 months, America has completely done a 180, and it's not the America we recognize, and not the America that sustained us for 240 plus years.
I just want to say to you very quickly, Joe Biden, Jimmy Cartered himself before he even got in, okay? That's how depressing and dour Joe Biden is, that he Jimmy Cartered himself before even taking office.
Well, what does that mean, Jim? I'm not sure what you mean by
Jimmy Carter said we have, the next 4 years or the next, what was it, the exact quote? It won't be better than the last. We have a crisis of conscience in America, and, there's no hope. Wasn't that one of his big speeches, Jimmy Carter?
I don't remember that speech. I mean, he was so loathsome in so many ways. It's hard to isolate any one part. But I would like to ask a respectful question to Lindsey. You're just a child. I mean, do you feel that your future in America is nowhere near as bright as, I think you're 23 or something, some very, very young age, 22. I mean, I felt as if the future for America, my own future, very questionable because I was such a drug user, but the future for the country was great. And do you feel as if the future for the country is great still?
Well, I think some people are starting to wake up to the fact that government is not going to be there to save them and to help them, and that they are responsible for helping themselves. And if something goes wrong, they have to figure it out, or their neighbors have to help them. I think more than ever, people are starting to learn different skills and rely more on themselves and their communities, which I think is going to be better off in the long run than a mass of people believing that the government's our savior and we don't have to worry because they're going to show up when things go really wrong. I think the more that I see myself doing things that I need to do for myself versus the government or waiting for someone else to do it, the more positive I am about the future. And I see other people starting to do the same things. People are starting gardens that never did before. They're learning to make their own clothes. They're homeschooling their kids, all these things because the government did such a poor job the last 9 months that they're now taking it upon themselves and empowering themselves. Because when the citizens are empowered, you don't need a large government.
If I may say so again, I don't think it's a question of the competence of bureaucrats and civil servants. I worked for the federal government for not a terribly long time, but for some time. And these were some of the most hardworking, intelligent people I ever knew in my life. In fact, the people I worked with when I was at the White House and the Federal Trade Commission are, without question, the smartest people I ever worked with. But I think what we've seen in the last few years, especially since Mr. Trump was inaugurated, is a viciousness and an evil, mendacious quality that's just terrifyingly upsetting. And I mean, with the way they went after the Supreme Court nominee, a perfectly fine man, it was unbelievable the way they went after Mr. Trump with these completely made up allegations about Russian collusion and all kinds of subversion and treason. It was completely made up. It was very reminiscent of the Stalinist show trials. You guys are way too young to even remember even writing about it. I wasn't alive during it either. But I think we have seen in America, which is now considered to be at least somewhat Stalinist, and in its government, it's not hasn't reached to me. I mean, I'm sitting in my very comfortable study of my house, but I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared to drive down the road for fear that some policeman who's been hepped up on some kind of a program is going to flag me down and pull me over, basically for being white.
You raise a great point. And by the way, the speech was the crisis of confidence speech, where he said a majority of our people believe that the next 5 years will be worse than the past 5 years. That was a speech by Jimmy Carter. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to the Ben Stein New Year special. We're joined by Rob Kendall from Conservative Talk Show radio host in Indianapolis. I'll give the call numbers in a second. I want to thank everybody that's listening on YouTube. We are going to do a certain giveaway tonight. We're going to play a fun game called Stump the Stein, where we will gladly send you guys autographed books if you can stump them, and even if you can't.
But they can't be ridiculous questions like when is my mother's birthday. That's the questions that a well-educated, well-informed person would know, but not personal questions. As I say, like how old was I when I first learned about sex? It can't be anything.
Right. It can't be right. It can't be like, what am I wearing?
Right,
and of course, we're joined by presenter extraordinaire, Lindsay Marie. We got to give a big, am I allowed to bring up the article you got submitted today, Lindsay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't you tell people where they could find your new article?
It's actually a satire piece, and it's up at Daily Drunk Mag.
That's quite funny.
It's a satirical piece about ADHD. And it was sort of me pushing back against a lot of things I've been told over the years about if I just only tried harder, that things would be so much easier.
I can't believe that anyone ever said you had ADHD. That's a little hard to believe. I think that, did anyone ever tell you that? That's impossible to believe.
I'm medicated, so it's manageable.
We're all medicated one way or the other, but I want to welcome everybody back to the world according to Ben Stein. About 4 years ago, Ben, I wrote a piece for The Spectator about how to get laid on New Year's Eve if you're a Republican in the Trump world. And I took I think it was an OkCupid form, and I filled out like what a liberal would say to the women so they wouldn't know that they're a Republican on New Year's. So like one of the things I said was, say you love PETA. Say you like the band. I love
PETA though. So
say you love the band The Pixies. Hey, then you'd there's certain things I was like certain you love going to Lilith Fair or Coachella. Those are like certain code words. But it's something I really want to talk about. That's where we are right now in this world. We've been in it a while, but Trump really exacerbated it, is this divisiveness that we have in our country, that people won't even date, talk, discuss anything with people that might think differently. And that is one of the most frightening thoughts.
It's very frightening. I want to just take a break for just a second. And you guys look. Glenn, this is Glenn. Glenn, come here. Glenn, wave hello to everyone. Glenn is my caregiver because I hurt my knee quite badly. This is Glenn. And he's from the Philippines, and his name is Glenn Miller. Glenn Miller Oyan. Okay, now Glenn, I want you to do this, please. This is a glimpse into the personal life of me. I want you to call Panda. Okay, Panda. I want you to order a large shrimp with walnuts and a large kung pao chicken. Wait, not finished.
And
I want
he wants a honey walnut and a black pepper chicken, a honey walnut, and kung pao. You're good to go, Glenn.
So get all this.
And Rob, what do you think about that, though?
Well,
chicken.
Not about what Ben's eating. A quick story. I had a friend that directed a very big show in Hollywood. He used to make me come to it every Friday night, and I would, but pre the election, at the election, all of a sudden he stopped talking to me. This is one of my closest friends I had in the world. In my wildest dreams, Rob, I would never think about defriending somebody because of their political beliefs.
Well, it's funny. We actually talked about this yesterday on the radio show. Anyone who would
Okay, Ben.
Anyone who would not be your friend over your political beliefs was never your friend to begin with, right?
But, if I may interrupt, I'm sorry.
It's your show. Go ahead.
It's America's show. It's American.
It's America's show, Rob. You go ahead. You were discussing it on your show yesterday.
Rob, I dropped my phone. I'm a person. I make all kinds of mistakes. I'm a human being. Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Go ahead. This is our New Year's special.
Go ahead, Rob.
It's fascinating to me, the lack of shared values maybe that exist in America now. It used to be a point of where it seemed like we all were going or wanted to go to the same place. We certainly fundamentally disagreed on how to get there, but we were all pulling in a shared direction. What's happened in our city of Indianapolis and the destruction, the riots that have happened over the past months, the homelessness problem, the business shutdowns, we're not pulling in the same direction anymore. The country is really split in half, and I'm not sure if we ever are going to have a shared direction that we're going anymore, and I don't know how you put it back together.
Well, wait a second. May I say something, please? And considering the fact that I am 3+ times Lindsay Marie's age, the country has been split for a long, long time. I mean, the country was really very badly split during the Civil War. But I think the level in prosperity, there really are no big issues in America like slavery was before the Civil War. The country is incredibly, unbelievably prosperous by and large. There are many exceptions, but by and large, it's incredibly prosperous. By and large, there's no racial discrimination at all anymore. That's a total myth and a complete lie. But see, there is the example of what is wrong with America. This total lie of systemic racism is being used to pull the country apart. And that, it seems to me, is Nazism. Just like the Nazis used this complete lie that the Jews were not humans, were in fact human-looking tuberculosis, and they were ruining the whole German society. We've got something here similar, just in terms of its far-fetched ridiculousness, which is the idea of systemic racism. This country is the least racist it's ever been. It's probably the least racist of any large industrial democracy. And yet the media whips us up into a frenzy about it all the time. And we now have this incredible craziness where Black Lives Matter is dictating the curricula in various schools. That's insanity, and that's ripping the country apart. As long as that is continuing, I see no end to the divisiveness in this country. I am sitting here, this old man, I'm sitting here at our club in the desert town called Rancho Mirage, and we all get along great. Why? Because we were raised in the 50s and 60s, and we were raised to believe that America is the greatest. And we have no question it is, none at all. And but today's young people are not being taught that. They're being taught to hate their own country. I'm sorry to be rambling on. I just saw on the news that one of the horrible Ayatollahs in Iran said, it's great. Now American children are being taught to say death to America, just like Iranian children. That's, I'm told, I don't know for sure, being done by Black Lives Matter, a really seditious, scary group, just in my humble opinion. And why anyone listens to them or pays attention to them, I have no idea, except apparently they are making tons of money for the people who run them.
That's always the way it works. And by the way, for the record, Ben is the youngest person at his country club. Lindsay Marie,
actually is true.
It is very true. Lindsay Marie, have you, obviously, I've always thought it's different for women and men as far as dating or friendships go, but in particular, like in LA and dating, it's they put on the apps now. I'm actually doing research on this. They put on the apps, Republican, conservative, they put your political things, and this has changed since I did research on apps a couple of years ago.
Can I ask a question?
No,
What is it?
yeah. A dating app, a dating application. It's like what you order Panda Express from. But Lindsay, how has it affected you or your friends?
Well, I think the thing that's interesting too is I think it's Pew Research study shows that for the first time in history, a couple years ago, people would rather their children marry someone of a different race than of a different political party. So think about that when you compare that to.
Please tell me you're teasing us. Please.
No, she's not. It was a Pew Research poll.
Please tell me you're
continue, Lindsay.
So
no, you're kidding. I know you're always kidding.
No, she's not. But go on, Lindsay.
But this is something where I slightly joke a little bit, but the fact that everyone hates me because I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. So as a libertarian, like I get it from both sides, depending on what issue I'm talking about. And there are people on both sides that will not talk to me, or they automatically judge me if they know my affiliation right off the bat. So if I'm meeting people in the comedy world, for instance, if they know my affiliation and things I've written, they treat me a lot different a lot of times than if they just met me as Lindsay Marie and doing comedy stuff together. There's always this judgment, and I don't get that, because if I only was friends with people that believed like I did, I'd have like 5 friends. Like you can't do that. There are very few of them. I think you have to get along with people, and people are more than their ideologies. They're more than their political affiliations. And if you can't see past that, I think that's a huge problem.
Can I tell a real quick Lindsay Marie story?
Yeah, please.
I don't know what you're about to say.
The first time I ever met Lindsay Marie was at a political function. I think it was a convention of sorts, a party convention. And she just showed and there was a line of men lined up to meet Lindsay Marie. It was like a Ben Stein book signing.
Well, Lindsay Marie is a very, very wonderful young woman. I can easily believe it.
And thank you for that. Thank you for the Lindsay Marie compliments. They are plenty. But here's a perfect example, and I just want to share this with people that are listening on YouTube. This is how bad it is, and because I've actually witnessed it, and I've had lunch with them. Is Ben's hero, other than his father, was Richard Milhouse Nixon. And Ben's closest friends, one of his closest friends from childhood, who lived, I believe, next door to him for most of his early life, was the man that brought down his hero.
He didn't do it. He had plenty of company. He didn't do it by himself.
Right, he didn't do it by himself. I'm trying to be nice to Carl Bernstein. I'm praying for him. And anyways, Ben and Carl have remained in contact, have remained friends. We had lunch on, I believe, Thanksgiving a couple of years ago. And that always has taught me a lesson. Now, sadly, the people that are screaming the loudest aren't showing this. So it's really important that people out there, even that are on the YouTube, that we can be friends. I mean, because the people in the Senate and the House, they're friends, most of them. This is a game to them. And I'll never forget when I saw that bastard Ted Kennedy, who left a woman to die on the side of a lake or river, Mary Jo Chapekny, and
it was the ocean. It was actually the ocean.
I think it was I didn't think it was an ocean, but and everybody in the Senate was mourning this monster's loss, and that's when I realized all these people just are people that never wanted to graduate from college. They wanted. It's like I look at the House and the Senate as the continuation. Like they have a commissary, they go on recess, they go on break, and I always look at them as like they just want us fighting.
I think you're entirely correct, and the Congress is like a club, and they do tend to get along well with each other. When somebody stands up and goes against the grain, the media and the rest of Congress rips him down pretty quickly. You guys are all way too young to remember Joe McCarthy, who in many ways his behavior was outrageous, but in many ways it was totally correct. Wait a second, hold on a second. Where are you going, Glenn? Where are you going?
And I want to welcome everybody to the World According to Ben Stein. But it's a New Year's special, and the World According to Ben Stein has to do with Panda Express often enough.
And ribeye steaks.
And Ben's ordering, but we're joined tonight by the live stream, and I will get to your questions in a second, but we're joined by Rob Kendall, from a conservative radio talk show host in Indianapolis. Can you tell us the call signs, Rob?
Yeah, 93.1 WIBC. It's the Mock and Rob show, which airs 9 to noon weekdays.
Can you stream it?
Oh, yeah, WIBC.com.
WIBC.com. And of course, from Times Square, libertarian and presenter, Lindsay Marie. But Ben, somebody has a question for you, and I will ask this for everybody. But what is your opinion on what's going on politically? I mean, that was a question.
What? I mean, everything's political. I mean, what is going on politically about what, sir?
I don't know. I'll have to wait for their next question. It's New Year's.
Let's go on to another question.
And by the way, my name is Judah, not Jonah. What is the best book to read about Richard Nixon? Somebody asked.
That is a really, really good question. Excellent question. I think the best book to read about Richard Nixon is one by my dear friend, Patrick J. Buchanan, who is a really, really, really smart guy. And he wrote a book called The Greatest Comeback, about how Nixon came back after being cheated and robbed of the election in 1960, and how he methodically, brilliantly worked his way back against overwhelming public opinion manufactured, fake news, fake public opinion manufactured by the left-wing media. He worked his way back to becoming president, and that's a really interesting book about how Nixon worked. Otherwise, Nixon himself wrote a very fine book. I think it's out of print, but it might be available in paperback, called Six Crises, which is quite interesting and I think well worth reading. Bill Sapphire, William Sapphire, who was a genius columnist for the New York Times, wrote a book called Before the Fall, about what Nixon's life and presidency were like before the Watergate persecution of him. That's a fine book too. I actually am, in my own pitiful way, working on a book about me and Nixon, but that is not going to be by any means.
Yes, it will be. It'll be a tour de force. But Rob, let me ask you both, you and Lindsay, both a question, because you both, Rob, you're on the air 3 hours a day. When you get off air, and I think you're married, or
I'm dating.
You're dating, and it's good to know that dating is such a code. It could be such a code.
I'm married. I am.
But Rob is dating. What do you discuss? Isn't the last thing sometimes you want to discuss politics?
Well, I think it's interesting because it's woven into the fabric of who I am. Like every person I meet that knows who I am, that's what they want to do. The person that I'm dating is very interested in politics. She has a libertarian, certainly a libertarian tilt to her belief system. So I think there's politics in everything. And I think one of the things that conservatives have to do better is understand the culture in which younger people live, the way that they're being raised, the way they're being educated, the YouTube generation, if you will, because we're not reaching a lot of those people. And so I really enjoy these conversations that we get to have because it helps me learn how to better converse with a different group of people that maybe traditionally talk radio doesn't meet. I did have one quick question for Ben, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
You asked.
Give me a long question.
Do you believe, as it relates to Nixon, he made a mistake in 1960 because he won that election? I'm totally convinced.
Of course.
Did he make a mistake and set the country on a bad path by not challenging that election harder because he won?
That is a really good question. And it shows his incredible nobility and patriotism that he did not challenge it. But I think he probably should have challenged it. demanded a recount. I think the blatantness of the steal by Lyndon Johnson and his cronies, and the blatantness of outrageous theft in Illinois by Mayor Daley and his associates um, should have been questioned. And Nixon was a very polite, gentle soul, and except we had been drinking too much, but that was very rare. And I think he probably should have questioned. He should have questioned. Um, I don't know if it would have done any good, but
which goes, it's a good question because it goes to another question that we have in the YouTube as far as voter fraud. As far as, do you think anything will happen over voter fraud? And the answer I think is absolutely not. Rob?
Sorry.
I mean, Ben. Sorry.
Well, the night of the election, a very close friend of mine, very, very, very close friend of mine from Korea, and I went to a Republican victory party celebration out here in the desert. And the news was on, was saying Trump was pulling ahead, that the out-of-state absentee ballots had already been counted, and they had given Biden a big victory, or a victory, but that once the real votes were coming in, Trump was ahead, and there was nothing on the horizon that would keep him from winning. And my friend and I left the party thinking, wow, he's won. And as soon as I got home, I had a text from Judah saying he's not going to win. The fix is in, and they're not. The Democrats are just not going to let him win. And I mocked Judah and said that no, clearly Trump had won. But by the morning, it was the conventional wisdom that Biden had won. I don't think he did win. I very much applaud his fighting back against voter fraud. I'm very, very sad that no court had the guts to order recounts. I mean, the stories that were floating around about fraud were so convincing, so powerful, so overwhelming. And they think they merited attention. But I'll tell you something else. Something that Lindsay Marie probably doesn't know about me is that I was, for a time in my life, a statistician and studied a fairly large amount of statistics in college. And once you have a trend, a large trend that's been going on for a while in an election, it doesn't suddenly turn around. That's just not the way elections work unless there's a fix. And I think Judah very brilliantly said the fix is in, and he was right.
Well, let's get to Lindsay. What are your thoughts on this whole thing? Because this is a huge part of your life is activism. And I really do believe we have a lot of disenfranchised people right now, Lindsay. And is there going to be a new? I mean, I don't believe that there's a party anymore. The Republican Party exists. I don't know if people are going to go to the Libertarian Party or it's going to be the party with the capital T. Well, what do you think is going to happen since you're so into the judicial system?
No, I'd definitely be interested to see what happens. I do know that beginning with Trump's presidency, the LP Libertarian Party's member base started skyrocketing. It grew exponentially during that time. It's the only growing party right now and has been for the last many, many years. The issue with the Libertarian Party is that the majority of people don't know it actually exists. They think a libertarian is just like a Rand Paul, someone who's in the Republican Party and opposes foreign wars and things like that. But the party itself is completely separate ideology from the Republican Party. Not only do they not believe in government intervention in economic issues, but also social issues. And so I think with younger generations, they do sort of align with that belief. People that are like my age, Rob's age, they just don't know that
Thanks
exists.
for not putting me in that because I'm an old man here. But thanks.
But
Lindsay Marie, how old are you? You've told us every time you talk.
She doesn't share her age. But go on. Sorry, Lindsay.
I do think younger generations, they do align ideologically with the Libertarian Party, but a lot of times people don't know it exists and or they just want to be independent. They don't want labels on things. But the problem is you have to vote for someone if you want to vote most of the time who has a label behind their name.
Well, Judah, if I can say so, I've seen the Republican Party dead and buried and counted out so many times. It never happens to be true. someone, I think, I could be wrong, I'm often wrong, someone will come along and be a dynamic voice in the party. Senator Cotton already, to me, is that voice. I've had the pleasure of hearing him speak and having dinner with him. I think he's a very impressive guy. He could use some lessons in speaking, quite a few lessons, but his heart's in the right place. And I think if he could dynamize himself, to make up a word I just did, um, I think he could be the leader. And there are probably others in the party who could be the leader. But the Republican Party, as I say, it's been counted out so many times. It's a joke.
Yeah, but it's what somebody had a comment in the section. What I meant is, you're right. Right now, the Trump supporter is pissed off that if they continue this voter fraud, and with the rigged elections, and no Republican in the Senate has enough guts, like Josh Hawley actually did, and said that that he'll challenge it, then we will have a bunch of disenfranchised 70 million some odd voters in this country, Rob.
Yeah, but
Well, one thing I want to piggyback off what Lindsay Marie said, which is in the state of Indiana this year, we saw an amazing almost 400,000 people vote for the Libertarian. He went from the previous Libertarian getting less than 4% to almost 12%.
That's amazing. It is. That's astonishing. Wow.
Well, the Libertarian candidate had Rob Kendall supporting him. That's why, in large part. But most of these people were Donald Trump voters who were highly enraged at our governor, Eric Holcomb, who did not govern like a Republican, did the shutdowns, did the mask mandates, tried to put people in jail for not wearing a mask, all the stuff. So there's an opening for the Libertarian Party. The question is, and Lindsay can speak to this as well, is can you capitalize on that? Because energy and passion only gets you so far. You've got to have that infrastructure and ability to put boots on the ground, money coming in, things of that nature. Otherwise, it's just a one-off thing.
Yeah, a lot of those voters were passion voters who were very angry about what was happening. It was a high arousal emotion situation. They're not going to probably remember that in the next 4 years unless the Republican governor, Eric Holcomb, continues to act like a Democrat, which I believe he will. And I think what's going to happen the next go around for the gubernatorial race is going to be interesting because I believe the same Libertarian is running again and said he wants to. So it's a matter of taking those voters that were angry originally, hoping they're still angry, and then also trying to work in some ideology, because it's not just about a protest vote. It's about tapping into that ideology that a governor should not be able to do this. This is a government intervention that is not necessary and is unconstitutional and against the state constitution as well. And that's going to be the tricky part.
I just want to get this straight because a lot of people are asking. So, Lindsay, a libertarian can be pro-life, right? It's not an...
The Libertarian Party does not take a stance outright on that. So I know people in the party that are on both sides of that issue. Just like with Democrats and sometimes Republicans, you don't always get every single person to agree on that same part of that issue.
And Judah, one thing I wanted to piggyback on off that, in Indiana in 2020, this Libertarian, Donald Rainwater is the guy's name, by the way, if you want to check him out. A lot of Reagan people would love Donald Rainwater. A lot of Trump people would love Rainwater. He got second place in 33 of our 92 counties. He beat the Democrat in 33 of the 92 counties with minimal infrastructure and donations. It was really incredible.
And Rob,
if I may say so, rarely is the word incredible used correctly, but that really is incredible. I'm very impressed, very impressed.
And Ben,
Ben Stein's impressed with me. Bucket list, yes, sir.
and you asked him an incredible question. But Ben, what I'm sort of saying is like this, right? So there was no candidate in the Republican Party in the last election other than Trump that would have won. That's just, in my humble opinion, there's nobody. There's nobody.
Trump did win.
Right, in both elections, and there's none of them in 2016 would have won Wisconsin, would have won Pennsylvania, would have won any of these states, and would have won Ohio so comfortably. And that's my point. Is it's not that you're right. It's not the Republicans or whatever you want to call them will have a comeback, but it's not going to be the party of Mitt Romney. It's not going to be the party of Paul Ryan.
No,
That
I think, but I think the Republican Party is a big tent, as the saying goes, and we can accommodate the country club Republicans, and we can accommodate extremely conservative Republicans. And I think we have to, and we will. To me, the dynamic force in the Republican Party is right to life. I know that's not the libertarian view, but to me, that is the dynamic voice of issue. And I don't think there is any more sacred issue at this point. And America is still a country that is very much devoted to religion, to worship of God. And I think that is the issue that can electrify a great many voters. And somehow, someone, and I don't know who it will be, but some very smart person and very passionate person has to convince the suburban soccer moms or whatever it is they're playing, and explaining to them that however inconvenient it is to have a child, and believe me, I am a father, I know, and a grandfather, I know it's very, raising children is very, very challenging. Um, it's right to life is, it seems to me, a shining beacon in a confusing, foggy world.
And just to add to what you just said, and I think Rob and Lindsay could add, I think the Republicans have done a terrible job of opening the tent even bigger. I think, Trump showed that you could get into the Black community. I don't think we've made inroads in the gay community. I think the Republican Party really needs to change its charter towards homosexuality. And I think the Republicans have really screwed the pooch for many years on how big their tent could be. Because we live, even if you go into West Hollywood, Ben, a lot of the people that live there who are gay would gladly vote conservative if certain members of the party spoke a little differently.
Well, I know you and I know that because there's a wonderful, wonderful store in a big, 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 big grocery store called Pavilions. I think it's in some way connected with Safeway, but I'm not sure exactly how. But anyway, and when we go up and down the aisles there, my wife doesn't shop. My wife's an invalid, but I do all the shopping, and Judah often helps me out. And I have people sort of wink and nod and say I'm Republican too. If we could have a man who said we welcome people to totally depend without regard to their sexual preference, I don't think it would take anything away from the party and would just add to the party. And that there's an interesting footnote to that, if I may. That is, there are very, very few homosexuals in America as a percentage of the population. Very, very few. But in terms of their energy, they're very large. They're just like the pro-abortion. That's wildly pro-abortion is a very small number of people, but they're extremely energetic. I think they're not good people, but excuse me, I beg your pardon, but they are very energetic. And I think we need people with similar dynamism to welcome the gay community into the Republican Party.
Yeah, Judah, if I could piggyback off that, before I was a radio broadcaster, I was an elected official. And one of the things—
You're an officer.
What's that?
What office did you hold, sir?
I was as small as you could get. I was a town council member.
God bless you.
Hey, that's how Bernie Sanders got to pretty much where he is. He won one vote in a mayoral victory in Vermont, and here we are with this piece of garbage, one vote. So
yeah.
Who are you talking about?
Bernie Sanders.
He won one vote?
I think he won the mayoral victory by one vote in his town in Vermont, and that set his career. But go on, Rob.
Well, the point was, when I ran, we won and won big, but the big reason was, even in a local election, I would knock on people's door and they'd go, no one's ever come to my door and asked for my vote. Like, just simply showing up and saying, we have these points of commonality, let's roll together. And the fact that you show up and ask for the vote on a local level, on a state level, on a federal level, it's all significant. And the Republicans are afraid to speak to blocks of people, and they're afraid to ask for the vote. And if you don't ask, and if you don't converse, and if you don't find points of commonality, which so many people have and they don't even know about, you have no chance to win.
But if I were a Republican person going around campaigning, I'd be scared to go into some of these non-white neighborhoods. I would be personally scared. I don't blame Republicans for being scared. And I mean, to go around here in my community out here in the desert near Palm Springs, that's not scary at all. But to go around the in non-white neighborhoods in some of these areas, I think that's quite frightening. I don't blame people for being scared. And with all due respect, I completely agree. It's wonderful to be asked to vote for someone, but sometimes it's too frightening. I used to watch George Bush 43 do it, and he did it beautifully. And he's a fearless, incredibly strong guy. But not everyone is fearless and incredibly strong.
But I have to disagree with you on this, Ben, because I believe people do want to be spoken to. I do believe in many churches, in many churches, they want to be spoken to. What say you, Lindsay Marie?
No, I think that people want to be spoken to and they want people to ask for their vote. And it reminds me of, I can't remember what election year this was, but I was out of Panera. I was clearly over 18 by a lot of years, was actually working at a campaign, and Mike Pence came in when he was campaigning for governor. He was making his rounds to every table, shaking hands and asking for votes. And he got to my table and he said, "Oh, you're not old enough to vote," and kept walking.
Oh, that's funny.
And I have never forgotten that as long as I live, because to me, it was like the biggest slap in the face. First of all, I am clearly old enough to vote, but to just say it flippantly and as if you don't care to talk to another Hoosier that you're representing, it just seemed very, I don't know. I wasn't a fan of that.
It was a mistake. It was a mistake, but I'm sure he regrets it.
Ben, somebody asked what was the first thing your Alex, your wife, was wearing when you met her?
I happen to remember it exactly. A blue satin dress with a full skirt, and she looked so beautiful. I'd never seen anyone look so beautiful in my whole life. I had at the time a wonderful, incredibly great girlfriend who had been my girlfriend when I was a senior in college, and she was a great, great girl, wonderful girl, and she's gone on to tremendous success as a lawyer. But my wife, it was love at first sight. My wife was so beautiful, and we've been together for 54 years. That's pretty amazing. And she's, I think, looks, I just saw her as I was walking across our house to get to this computer, and I think she looks more beautiful than ever. She's a saint.
Hey, Judah.
Yes.
This may, I hope I have another opportunity to do this again, but just in case I don't, I have to ask this question. It came from a very important person to Ben, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Better role for you, Ben, Ferris Bueller or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Ferris by a million miles. I mean, the blended Planes and Trains was way too short. It's barely anything. But boy, it's fun to be an actor. Last night, for the trillionth time, I watched Tropic Thunder, bajillionth time, and I thought, boy, they really have got it right about acting. That is such a fun job. To think you get paid for doing that is unbelievable.
And just so you know, Rob, because you haven't listened to the show before, Ben is somebody else says Ferris was the greatest day of his life. He considers it to be the filming of that day. He wasn't meant to be on screen. It was the kids were all cracking up, and what John Hughes and Matthew Broderick were hearing it, and they were like, and it was all ad-lib pretty much. His whole scene was ad-lib. That was
all ad-lib, not pretty much.
It was a course that you were giving at that time at somewhere, I believe.
Yeah,
and but Planes, Trains to us, and Ben said this the night John Hughes died on CNN. He said that it was the death of the salesman of this generation.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's the ultimate movie about work.
And it's in my top five favorite. No offense to Ferris, but Planes, Trains to me touched the nerve that
powerful.
This is getting back to it, because we've lost our way as far as creativity goes too. And we talk about these movies that brought people together, okay? That brought generations, brought different, I would hope, races, ages, everything together. If you don't watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and walk away laughing and thinking, I can't remember the last time I've seen a movie that had that effect on me. Maybe it was a movie like Tropic Thunder, or for me, The Hangover, or certain, but nothing to that effect, obviously. But I think, Lindsay, we've lost our way creativity-wise. I mean,
Yeah, and I think I've said this a million times. I think the left has a monopoly on comedy. Like late night shows, there's not even a centrist host on any of the late night shows, anything on Comedy Central. So if you want to watch that kind of stuff, comedy late night, see your favorite actors and artists, you have to listen to these jokes that I don't find that funny most of the time. And a
Well,
lot of
you're
times
so right. You're
I
so
can,
right.
a lot of times I can separate the political message between the actual joke, the craft of it. But it's just, it gets old over and over. Like I didn't vote for Trump, but listening to the same Trump jokes every night for 365 days is exhausting. You know, when when it came out that he probably wasn't going to win the election, these people lost basically their livelihoods because all they did was get paid to make fun of this man who is not going to be in the power anymore. So what are they going to make fun of now? I wish I could see more either libertarians or conservatives or even independents get into comedy because, gosh, I want jokes to laugh at that are political. I want javelin satire that pushes against the government in ways that no one's doing it.
Well, you are so incredibly right. And I gave Jimmy Kimmel his first job on television. He was my co-host on Win Ben Stein's Money, and I was the only Republican on the Comedy Central lineup. And I remember at one point we were having a contest. One of our shows was set up such that the winner would give his prize money to the charity of his choice, and I was the winner. And I said, okay, I'll give it to the National Right to Life. And the representative of Comedy Central who was in the audience was laughing, laughing, laughing. And I said, I don't get it. What's the joke? And she said, you're kidding. You're not seriously pro-life. I said, yeah, I'm very seriously pro-life. And she said, well, okay, we can't do that. So we have to reshoot the end of the show. And you can't do it. We're not going to allow you to do it. And I'm weak. And so I said, okay, I'll make it. I forget what charity it was, but some other charity for children. That's what Hollywood's like.
That's an insane story. I mean, just so you understand, Rob, Ben's written 3 movies at least that he didn't get credit for, that people took, that they said the only way they would do the movie if his name wasn't on it.
Right, because of my connection being a conservative and my connection with Richard Nixon. And when I used to be a writer for one of Norman Lear's shows and I was in the audience, the producers of the show would always, permanently, constantly introduce me to the audience as our resident fascist.
Hey, Ben, question, because I remember as a kid watching Win Ben Stein's Money. I think it was a great show and never missed. And all these years later, it's still immensely popular. Was it weird to you that Hollywood and these shows and these TV studios and these television stations would rather lose money? They're so wed to a political ideology that they'd rather lose money than just let something out there that they don't agree with?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. The ideological grip on Hollywood by the left is extremely serious and not always economically sensible.
By the way, we're gonna go a few minutes over because a lot of people do have questions. But yes,
I like
Rob,
that. We can go as long as we want.
Yeah, but Rob, yes, in the old day, I used to get into this argument with a friend of mine who's an actor in the industry, and he would say, he would always say all movies make money. And what's funny is Forrest Gump didn't, because through Hollywood accounting, it actually lost money.
They always say that. They always say
they don't really care anymore. You know, if you look at the gross of movies, and then the movies have been getting annihilated for the past 4 to 5 years as far as losing money, because it's not their money, it's other people's money. You know, if it was their own money and they weren't, and Ben's wife was this was Ben's wife's job, was signing these contracts, and they just don't care anymore about this. But Ben, one of the questions I wanted to bring up was, what were some of the movies that you didn't get made? Then it was Murder in Mississippi, right?
Well, no, it got made. Oh no, it very much got made, and it was a great movie. It won a lot of prizes. I thought of the story. Well, the story was a true life story, but I brought it to a producer from Israel, an Israeli woman, and she had never heard of it. I'd never heard of the whole issue of civil rights or even had any idea where Mississippi was. And I wrote the outline of the story. We got it. We got it to set up to get ready to go. At a certain point, she called me and she said, "Oh, I've worked it out such that I'm going to get all the credit, and you'll get a few $1,000s, and that's it." And I said, "Well, you're kidding. We have a contract that calls for me to be the producer and to get paid a certain amount of money if it gets paid." She said, "So sue me." So I sued that old witch, and she came to the door of my house in the Hollywood Hills and pounded on the door. And she said, "You sued me." I said, "Well, Topher, you told me to sue you." And so that was one, and that was very successful and a darn good movie, although horrible anti-Christian scenes in it that I had nothing to do with. They just put them in there just to be shits. Pardon the criticism of my speech. Two, a movie about a Soviet takeover of the United States. There turned out to be a 14 and a half hour miniseries, and I was supposed to be a producer. And story by the guy who was a director said, "I will not work on this. I will not do anything on this if Ben Stein's name appears on the screen," because he worked for Nixon. And they offered me quite a lot of money to take my name off the screen. And they said they'd give me another screenplay deal on another show. And I said, "Okay, I'll take it. Money's a great thing. I'll take it." And then, and you can take my name off. And then the third one was, it was the third one about drugs. I can't remember. It wasn't about a stewardess. Anyway, I can't remember. But this happened to me over and over. Oh, no. It was about drugs. It was my wonderful, wonderful book, Ludes, about Quaalude addiction. And it took a long time to get made. And then a close friend of the producer got the credit, even though I had written almost every word. And we brought it to the Writers Guild to arbitrate it. And we each presented our case. And I went into the men's room in one of the toilet stalls. And I heard two of the judges walk in and say, "I'll be damned if I give any credit to a son of a bitch who worked for Richard Nixon." And I didn't get credit. I should have sued, but I didn't. There were others. That's just three of them.
It's insane. And I want to get back to this thing about, because, with Lindsay being, you're into this, we've lost our way creative wise, and I believe that is the way to bridge the gap in our country. Where was I today? You go on Netflix or Amazon or HBO Max, and it says it gives me black movie suggestions. Okay, that is not a way to bridge the gap to getting us together as people. Just have movie selections. Okay, I had lent my Netflix account years ago to somebody I was very close to, and this is a true story. Netflix, the person was gay, and Netflix started giving me certain recommendations, and I thought that was hysterical. But that's because it's an algorithm. But don't suggest to me that I watch black. It's like on iTunes has the same thing, I believe, or Apple Music. They have the same like black artists you should be listening to. How is that bridging the gap? I ask that to all of you. I mean, it's not.
And no, they don't want to bridge the gap. They want to control. They don't want reconciliation. They want control, and they want to work it out. And by the way, they don't really give that much of a damn about how much money the studio shareholders are making. They are making lots and lots of money themselves. I have a fairly close friend, actually has a very nice house down there in the desert near mine, not as nice as mine. And he although at a much fancier club. And he said to me, the job of a studio executive is to take the stockholders' money and put it in his own pocket. And that's unfortunately true. And the ideology comes ahead of taking good care of the stockholders.
And we are running out of time. But Lindsay, can you stump Mr. Stein?
I'll let Rob go first. Give me a second.
Oh no! Oh no!
It's your birthday.
I'm sure you can both stump me. Go ahead. Anyway.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
No, this is Rob's first time on the show and birthday, so I feel like
I love that Rob has such affinity for you, Ben, like most people do, and that's what bothers me. I got to be honest with you guys so much about this disdain that people have into the people that are listening. Is I get to hang out with Ben quite often, and we're in certain areas that you wouldn't think. With all this divisiveness, you know, and I'll never forget, we were on top of the parking lot of the Pavilions in West Hollywood. And like, there were 3 transsexuals that walked up to us. And I was like, ooh, you know, and like, could we have your picture? And that was, and it was amazing. And then there was another really sad thing. We were at Petty 4, I believe it was, and it was one of the most famous actresses in the world. And she looks at Ben, and Ben goes, what do you say? I think you're famous. You look like a star. And she's like, well, you know, and she said, I'm a huge fan of yours, you know, have been. And she said, Ben didn't ask. She said, I would love to take a picture, but I can't. And you know, because somehow she took taking a picture, this generation is posting it on Instagram. You can't just have a private picture for your own phone. You have to.
Who was that? Was it Doris Day?
She's been in every. All I'll say is she's been in every pretty much every blockbuster movie for the past 15 years. She has been in 4 different of the most biggest blockbuster movies.
But we can't remember her name. It's pathetic. It reminds me of when I first moved here. Wifey and I were eating at Mr. Chow, a very famous restaurant here, and the woman was sitting next to me, and I said to her, "You look very familiar to me. Are you my real estate agent?" And she turned to the woman she was having dinner with, and she said, "Look, that's what I've come to. He thinks I'm his real estate agent." And it was, in fact, Doris Day, whom you guys probably don't remember. She's a huge star.
It's the woman from Guardians of the Galaxy and Avatar and all those movies. I can't remember her name. I always get bad.
I think that's Lindsay Marie.
Lindsay Marie would probably know who it is, and it doesn't really matter. But like I said, we are running out of time. But I want to tell everybody in the YouTube chat, if you send me a message at Judah Friedman with your address and you'd like an autographed copy of one of Ben's book. It could be any of his books that we could get, from The Capitalist Code to my favorite, which is Ludes, which is the movie that became The Boost, by the way, which he was talking about.
James Woods and Sean Young.
James Woods and Sean Young. It was the movie that, them two did not get along very well. And please send me your address. We will gladly sign you an autographed book of Ben. So you guys have one chance to stump the Stein. So Rob, you had a second to think about it.
Yeah, I have. So I'm going to do an Indiana question, but it's a political government question. So I hope that'll work. Indianapolis was not the original state capital of Indiana. Can Ben name the original state capital of Indiana?
No. I can't. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's Corydon, Indiana.
It's what?
Corydon, Indiana.
Say it again.
Corydon.
Okay. Well, God bless him. I want to know what Lindsay Marie is doing for Christmas Eve. New Year's Eve. Sorry.
I'm here with you guys. So.
Hey. What are you doing, Rob?
I'm here with you.
Judah, what are you doing? Are you going to drive down here and see me?
I'll be down there tomorrow. It's a little too late for me tonight.
All right. Well, God bless you, sir.
I will be down there tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. But
thank you so much, and God bless America. Yeah. God bless America.
We're not fully done yet. I want to thank Rob and tell people again where they could listen to you every day. 93.1
WIBC, weekdays 9 to noon. I want to thank you, Judah. I want to thank Lindsay Marie. And most importantly, want to thank Ben. This is like a bucket list thing. You're the best. Thank you so much, guys.
And of course, and Lindsay Marie, please read her piece today. It's great. Where could they find that piece?
dailydrunkmag.com.
And, okay.
And if everybody read Rock Breath's new piece, he has set up a WordPress site, and I've echoed it. I will be echoing it. Rock Breath is a really talented guy, and he's a big fan of the show, and I encourage everybody to read it. I will answer one more question. The reason I am in this is I'm in a new apartment, and I don't have anything up yet, and we usually do the show from Ben's house, where I'm in the one room, Ben's in the other room. So that's why we have this. I have the wonderful scenery where it looks like I'm in the cube. And I just want to thank everybody. You can find me on Parler at Judah Friedman. You can find Ben Stein at Ben Stein. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your loved ones, tell everybody to listen to The World According to Ben Stein. We will be back next Tuesday night. I want to wish everybody a happy new year.
Happy and healthy and drive safely.
Hopefully we were able to help a little bit. And Lindsay, you look great in that scene from New York. Ben Stein is your Anderson Cooper. And on that note, I want to thank everybody again. Have a great night, people. Thank you.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I know that I do believe we shall overcome.